All right, so today is just kind of a recap day of the series that we've been in, talking about apprenticing under Jesus. So we're going to spend just a couple of minutes recapping those, especially for people who maybe have missed some or haven't been here, or new people today, so you know what we're talking about. And then we're going to share a little bit just about how that's been for us. So I'm actually going to share for a couple minutes about my personal experience with this and how it's impacted my life. We've asked Matt Garriga to come up and speak about that. But then we wanted to open it up to you guys just to share for each other. I think it's helpful to hear those kinds of things of what's worked. And yeah, maybe kind of give each other a little encouragement on something that we could apply that might work for us. And yeah, so that's the plan. The Apprenticing Under Jesus series has been just about that we often think about apprenticing under Jesus as living the life of Jesus, and that is true, but we kind of skip over this crucial step of imitating the lifestyle of Jesus. And so we try to imitate the life of Jesus while also living this very American lifestyle, and those just aren't very conducive to each other. We just live in such a fast-paced culture with so many different values than Jesus, and how people live is not how Jesus lived. And there is certainly a difference when we try to figure out what would that look like in our culture. But I think there are some major shifts that need to happen for us to be able to imitate Jesus in that way. And so that's kind of the point that we started from. And this wasn't an all-encompassing series. There's so many things we could have talked about. We only picked 4-ish practices to kind of start out with, and in hopes just that we wouldn't overwhelm, in hopes that we could maybe pick a few things to start trying to apply. And then I think we'll revisit that at some point in the future, kind of check in on some of those and maybe add some others. But yeah, I just wanted to recap those real quick. So the first one that we talked about is just silence and solitude. And remember, we talked about each of these not as this is how to be a good Christian, but just as in how to support our life and walk with Jesus. Our goal is to become like him and to have intimacy with him. And so there are things that can cultivate that. We talked about having a trellis for our connection with the vine, instead of just throwing our vine on the ground and hoping for the best. We support it and help it grow and help it be healthy. And that's what these practices are. They're not like some flex. It's not a flex to show up to basketball practice, right? It's just what you do if you want to become a good basketball player. And so as a Christian, it's not a flex to have these practices in our life. Look how good I am. It's just what you do if you want intimacy with Jesus and you want to become more like him. And these are gifts that God has given us as practical ways that we can do that. So the first one is silence and solitude. And that one's just creating space in our life to hear and interact with God. Our lives are so busy. They're so full of noise and literal sound. And we have access to all kinds of things. So we fill every single pocket of our time with something, with music, with a podcast, with a show, with a conversation. And it's interesting talking about this. There's a lot of fear surrounding even just 5 minutes of solitude and silence. And so that's one thing that we tried to press into. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places. That was a practice that he had. And so building that into our lives to create space to hear and talk to God. The next one was slowing and simplicity. We definitely don't get a sense from Jesus that he was just rushing around frantic from thing to thing. And we also don't get the impression that he was enmeshed in a lot of the complexity of everyday life. He seemed to live very simply, very light, and he went where the Spirit called him to go, at the pace the Spirit called him to go. And that is very contradictory to our way of life. When we talked about Scripture, Jesus knew and loved Scripture, not because it earned him something with God, but because it was the words of God. And it filled his heart and mind with how he should see and interact with the world around him. It filled his heart and mind with God's heart and mind. And then the last one is prayer. Jesus was prayerful. Again, he often went to lonely places to pray, the scripture says, to commune with God, to get on the same page with God, to cast all his anxieties on God, like John talked about last week. So those are the four. There's more than four in that, but those are the four categories of things that we talked about to kind of jog your memory. But I want you to be thinking, what are some of the things that you've implemented from this list? What does that look like in your life, and what's the fruit of that been? How have you seen that impact you or change you? But you could also just share what's kind of shifted in your heart and mind as we've talked about these things. What stood out that you want to hold on to? But before we do that, I'm going to share, and then like I said, Matt's going to share, and then we'll open it up so you can kind of be thinking. But yeah, this was a really big deal for me. So last semester, I can't remember if I shared that here. I've shared it other places, but I really hit kind of a wall in the middle of that semester, and just got super depressed, super low, and trying to figure out like what's going on with me. And that's when this message kind of fell in my lap. This idea of apprenticing under Jesus, and that the lifestyle that we live actually matters when we're trying to live a life like Jesus. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. It really was, last year was the hardest year of my life by far. It was very difficult, very painful for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to get into it. I'll get emotional, but I was just carrying a lot, and still am just carrying a lot. And I realized that my lifestyle was just not conducive to hold that and to try to do the things that God has called me to do. And I realized it was just incompatible. I was living just very, very, very rushing from one thing to the next, very hurried, really trying to optimize life and efficiency to be able to get everything done. And it just wasn't working. I'm not a machine, it turns out. And so I realized that God was just wanting me to stop and slow down, that I needed these practices of Jesus in my life. I was just filling every second with something. I realized I was listening to podcasts sometimes at 2 times speed. And I was like, maybe this is a sign of unhealth. and it was just maximizing, and I have to be 100% efficient and try to do everything to the best. And I was wrong. And I needed the way of Jesus in my life because I was just burning out and I wasn't going to be able to do that. And so I started just with the practice of silence and solitude, of just finding opportunities to, opportunities for that in my life. And it's never worked for me in these to be like every day at 8 a.m. I'm going to do this. It's just so not my temperament. I have a really hard time doing those kinds of things. So I don't really do that when I try to incorporate these things. So it was more of like, let me seek for when these times are available. So in the car, instead of turning on something, I would remember and not turn on anything. And sometimes just be totally quiet. Sometimes I would be talking to God, and sometimes not at all. If I had some time at home, whereas normally I would read something, or I would watch something, or work on something, instead I would see that as an opportunity to go take a walk and to be quiet with God. And so it really started with a lot of just silence, and I think that helped me in my slowing and just slowing everything down, simmering everything down where my thoughts aren't just rolling and I'm from thing to thing to thing to thing. And then the next thing I added into that is just talking to God. And that really was a discipline for me. I don't love emotions. I don't love talking through things myself. I'm happy to talk through things with other people, but that's a challenge for me. And so that felt very vulnerable and like work. But the more that I pushed myself to do that, just the freer and lighter I was. And that time with God really did become like this breath of fresh air, like being underwater and then getting to get a big deep breath. And I looked forward to that time more and more the more that I did that. And then I started talking to God out loud. I think I heard Garrett talk about that a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And sometimes I'll do it and sometimes I won't. But more and more, I'll go on a walk and talk to God out loud, and neighbors probably think I'm weird, but I'm like, they probably think I have an AirPod in, right? It's not a big deal. But I don't know. I really do feel like that practice has built a lot of intimacy with God for me, and I don't even know why necessarily. But yeah, I don't know. It felt very weird at first, but now he feels more and more like, man, this is my closest friend. And I was on a walk not that long ago, and I really did just get emotional thinking about that. Like, God, you're my closest friend. And I really love and value that time. And it is still a discipline and a practice. Sometimes I'm really eager to do that and get that time. And sometimes I'm not. And I have to be like, no, this is who I want to be. This is what I want to do. This is what I need for my life. And follow through. And sometimes those are big moments for me, and sometimes they're not. But I think that's the same in our relationship with others. And the more that I keep that in perspective, the easier it is for me to interact with God that way, that he is a person. He's not some object in the sky, but he is someone to have a relationship with and a back and forth relationship with. And so I don't know, those are things that I just kind of keep my eyes on as I get stressed, or as I notice being rushed, or as I notice me being hard on myself for not living up to some standards in my mind. Like, oh, well, how is my silence and solitude with God? How has my prayer life been with God? Because it seems like those have a real correlation, that when I'm doing that, I'm much more at peace. I'm much slower. Much more resolute on what I should and shouldn't be worrying about. And then, when I get off track, I can usually find a place there where I've gone wrong. So those are some of my thoughts. Hopefully that was helpful. But I'd like Matt to come up and just share some from his perspective. And then again, after that, we'll open it up for you guys to share community sharing style.
Sweet. Thanks, Bree. Thank you for the opportunity to share as well. Good afternoon, church. So Bree's asked me just to share a little bit about what I've put into practice from this series. And for some backstory, this series is coming off of the tail end of reading a few different books with various groups that kind of all say the same things. Those books are The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, Practicing the Way, and Habits of the Household. If you've never read them, they say, slow down, invite God in, and get off your phone. That's the gist of all three. So now you don't have to read them. No, I'm just kidding. Please do. But I think, and Bree, I really want to thank you for bringing Ruthless Elimination of Hurry into our small group, because as you were feeling those things last year, so were we. Like, there was so many of us in that group that needed to hear the message. I remember there was a night that you weren't there at group, and it was one of the most productive conversations we had, where everybody was like collectively, okay, thanks, Bree, we need this. Like, this was very helpful. Not that you aren't productive in our meetings. That's beside the point. But yeah, gotcha. Okay. So just a couple things that I wanted to share that I've put into practice are two things. The first one is short prayers, and the second one is driving the speed limit. So we'll get to the speed limit one. I know you guys are eager for that, but short prayers. So in one of the books, I read a quote that was like, the most radical truths are the most meaningful ones, or the simplest truths are the most radical ones, and the shortest prayers are the best ones. And so he gave opportunities to pray short prayers, something like, my feet hit the ground in the morning, and God, I was made for your presence. May today be one that I spend with you in all that I do. Super simple. Or, I'm walking into a meeting at work. God, give me patience for this call. It's something small that invites God in, but it seems like a conversation throughout the day. You're having these different touch points with God, rather than trying to block off 5, 10, 15 minutes to pray this intentional long prayer that we all inevitably don't do. I was trying to do that same thing, and it just wasn't going well. So these short prayers have been super radical for me because they've helped me invite God in throughout my day, just as a man of God, like somebody who wants a relationship with him and that friendship with him. I've seen him work in me through different ways. There was a specific meeting I was going into, and I needed that patience, and I asked God for it, and he gave it to me. And the result of that was great. I find these times where I'm walking to Josie's crib in the middle of the night. God, remind me that I'm a restless person that needs to be put back to sleep too. And it just helps me like not get frustrated when I'm up in the middle of the night trying to, I look down and she's smiling at me, and this isn't the time for that. But, so yeah, the second one is that. So that one's more of like the prayer part. The second one is slowing. So driving the speed limit. I was given this idea in one of the books that what if you just drove the speed limit where you were going? Like, I was getting places and I was being super rushed. I was swerving lanes. I was cutting people off. I was judging how bad of a driver you were because you weren't doing what you were supposed to do and I was better than you. And then I would get to that place and I wasn't present. I was always looking at my phone to hurry myself up. I was just like stressed and not like where I needed to be. So I said, all right, this week, God, I will drive the speed limit going to and from work. And for reference, my commute is down Park Road in Plano. The max speed limit is 35 miles an hour, and there's 3 school zones. So that really put me to the test. But it's been super fruitful. I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 months now. And I noticed that when I get places, I'm not antsy. I'm not stressed. I'm present where I am. And God has given me the ability to be more attentive to the people where I am because I've just been either spending time with him or I've really just been quiet in the car, been slow. Sometimes I'm sitting at a light 6 cars back and the lane next to me is open. What else am I supposed to do than ask God for patience, And so those are the 2 things that I really wanted to share that I put into practice that have been helpful. So the latter was slowing and the former was prayer. And I thought those have been helpful. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have put into practice and what's been going well. I hope that this has been helpful. So, yeah, thanks again, Bree.
All right. Yeah, so let's open it up. If you have something you want to share, we'd love to hear. Doesn't have to be as long as we talked, but okay, here we go.
No. So I also just recently finished The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and I just would like everyone to know that I couldn't tell you the last time I read a book, and I actually read it, didn't even listen to it. So that was really exciting. But it talks a lot about Matthew 11:28-30, and that is, then Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." One of the biggest things I took away from the book when I finished it was, man, there's a whole bunch of really great ideas in here, but I don't have to do them all right now. And I think that was it's kind of the slowness of sometimes you read a book with all of these great ideas and you want to do all of them right then. And so I just took one thing, car related, not going the speed limit. And that was not using not listening to music or the radio. And I told my small group that my radio is broken in the car I drive anyway, but it's really frustrating. But over after finishing the book and through these lessons, I've been okay, I don't have to turn music on my phone, and I don't have to get so angry every time the radio doesn't actually work. And the big thing I've been noticing really is similarly, just time to pray. Now I have this time in my car when I'm probably thinking about 1,800 things to stop and pray. Not actually stop the vehicle or slow down, but yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, I think the past probably 8 months, God has just been convicting me and teaching me a lot about prayer. How do I think about prayer? How do I approach God in prayer? What does that look like in my life? How should it look like? There's a couple things that have been really helpful for that. And one is that prayer should be my equilibrium. It should center me. And whether it needs to bring me up or bring me down, that needs to be what centers me. Not even conversations with my wife, Alice, or with friendships. Like, I think God uses those things, but at the end of the day, it's me connecting with God. I need to listen to him. So that's been really helpful. And then also in my prayers, approaching God, both surrendered and hopeful, and make sure it's both of those, not just one. And that's really hard for me to do. It's hard for me to be that little kid asking dad for help, going to him with things. But it's been really sweet seeing God meet me where I'm at in that, as he always does. So I'm excited for what this is going to continue to look like, what he's going to continue to teach me about prayer. Yeah.
This series has been one of the most fruitful for me. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but there's so many nuggets of truth in it that we can take and apply it to our walk with God, and then really challenge ourselves to change. And so for me personally, each week was really powerful. But I feel like I've always had this fire in me to study the word with specifically teenagers, but now women. That's been something that I love, that comes really easy, that I really enjoy, that I think God has gifted me. And what I have not been good at is taking that solitude and time myself to be in the word. And it's something, guys, I mean, over and over, I'm constantly like, I'm going to pray for God to give me the fire to like open my Bible every day. And it's just never happened, probably because of a lack of discipline for sure. But after the scripture sermon that William gave, I'm like, dang it, Christy, it's time. You got to do it. And John had started giving his first morning to God. And so I would walk in the office and I'm like, it's in my face. He's doing it. I've got to do it, you know. So I, for the last 2 weeks, I mean, it's new, but I have been in the Word first thing in the morning. I don't look at my phone. I don't open my computer, which is really hard for me to do. I got this study that by the end I will have read the Bible in 1 year, but it's not the same thing. And what I've discovered is how cool God is and how crazy the way that he orchestrated this. I went to dinner with Shannon last night, and for like 15 minutes, I just started talking about it. And I was like, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then in Isaiah, and she was probably like, whoa, fire hose. But it's so exciting. And I told her I wake up in the morning and how I feel now, 2 weeks, is like it's a good novel. I'm like, oh, I want to see what he does. I read this and now I get to read this again. And it's just really fired me up. And I see why we need to be in the Word every day after all this time working with the Lord. So I just want to thank all of our pastors for taking us through this. There's just been a lot of great truth. So thank you.
This particular series feels like it's one more step in a long series of months, if not years. Earlier in the year, I was just kind of ambivalent about prayer specifically, and like wondering, is this even worth practicing? Because I'm expecting a return on something. And it's funny, I love watching and like finding through lines in my life of what God is doing and kind of repeat patterns of things getting brought up over and over and over, which repetitiveness is a very easy way to get my attention. So I kind of lamented about prayer and just how much I didn't really respect it. And then it gets brought up. We start kind of pulling some of John Mark Comer's stuff in a thing we were doing in our small group, kind of a series of videos on prayer. And it was at a time where I almost didn't walk into small group a couple of weeks because I just felt so downtrodden. It was like, got prompted to go in and, okay, prayer is accessible. All the things that I need for prayer are things that he was revealing. I was like, I already do it. And like all the tools I thought that I didn't have access to, I do. And this series was like in the midst of this a couple of weekends ago, Jesus just landed on me as if he had been destroying a very large wall of deception that kept me from really communing with him. And for it had been a long time since I've ever had anything like that. And so because of that moment, it's like suddenly the floodgates, the dam broke, the floodgates opened up. I started journaling again. I really enjoy handwriting and writing stuff out. And that got restored to me. And every day, it's like, I look at my journal, I had things that I had written maybe 6 months apart. Now it's like I'm writing every day or every other day, and it's like I can't stop. And there's just this consistent flow of just communion. In this mode, it's a lot of prayer and a lot of writing, but there's a lot of just any time that I am feeling any sort of out of sorts, I know I can go to him. And I know that his arms are open and wide open. As things got louder in the world and as things got more chaotic, it felt like my accelerator pedal was stuck. To use a car analogy, it's like stuck and I'm constantly accelerating. Things were getting faster and faster and I felt helpless. And through this series and a lot of other things, he's pulling me back and bringing me to just imagining a quiet stream, quiet places, and it's been consistent. So there's a lot of things I'm taking away from this series.
Hi, I'm gonna bounce my way through this. That's just where we're at. But something about me, I love silence and solitude. I walk without my phone, without headphones. I do my commute without music. I love it. But I have a 3-month-old baby. And so those moments of silence and solitude they don't exist anymore. When I have them, my brain is all over the place. It's mom brain. I can't even focus on anything. I used to have a 45-minute commute to work, and I loved that time being my prayer time. I could talk to God the whole time, and it was wonderful. But when I stopped having that commute, my prayer life just stopped that same day. Stopped praying altogether. And I remember the last time I tried to have a conversation with God like that, and I was in bed trying to fall asleep. And my baby was in that weird, I don't know if she's in her crib. I don't know if she's sleeping. I don't know if she's awake. She's just really loud. Do I need to get up? Do I need to lay down? I don't know. My husband next to me was snoring. The dog was being ridiculous, just scratching. And I couldn't form a sentence. No words would string together. And that just wasn't going to work anymore. My relationship with God, my prayer life had to adapt. And something that I also read, the Habits of the Household, that I got from there was short prayers. I might not have time or the brain capacity to have my relational conversations with God anymore, but I can say a short practice prayer when I make my bed in the morning. The one I'm using right now is, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, thank you for this day. Bless us as we work, study, play. Be present with us in all we do. May we bring glory and honor to you. And it rhymes. It's a little kid prayer, but that's what we can do right now. That's what I can do. And another line from that book about screen time specifically was, if we do not teach them, talking about kids, that silence is a sacred place where God speaks to us, then screens will make sure that they never, ever discover it. And so it just really sent home the point of, if I can't figure out how to pray and have a relationship with God in chaos, I have no hope of even being able to teach that. This series has been really great for me.
Yeah, something I've it's kind of frustrating because it's things I already knew, and it's things I already believe to be true, but actually practicing them and remembering to practice them, and just letting it kind of blow my mind again. But yeah, just that with silence and solitude, when you remove the distractions, something's going to take its place. And so it matters what takes its place. And I know I've shared this before, but just that concept of like being a person who, like, if I'm out on a walk, like my vision is kind of down and in, where I'm like looking at my phone or something, as opposed to my vision being kind of up and out at what's going on around me, at God's people, at His creation, and just how that translates more to also kind of my mental state of having a mindset that's very me and inward focus, as opposed to a mindset that's outward focus and upward focused. And yeah, man, just with, again, it's kind of that opportunity cost thing. It's like time you spend doing one thing is time you could have spent doing literally anything else. And when you get that time back, and when you start devoting that time to something that actually matters, man, it's just, you go for a walk, and I already loved trees and birds, but man, they just are so freaking crazy to me. And God's creation is just so cool. And not just nature, but each of y'all, each of us. God's creation is so cool. And I just don't want to be a person that's me-focused, me-centric, just constantly thinking about me. Like, no wonder I'm so anxious. It's because I'm thinking about me. No wonder I get depressed, because I'm thinking about me. It's the same principle with like ministry that you do. Yeah, if you're having a miserable time doing ministry, it's probably because you've made it about you. And so just not being a person that does that. And so this has been a really good reminder for all of those principles.
I'll run over here. I'm not going to run. Watch me walk. I could run, though. I could run pretty fast, though.
Hey guys. So I've been doing, for me, the prayer part has been really good lately. I've been using like the Acts method, whatever you would call that. And I use it on my way to work. So I start with like the daily devotional by like Worship Initiative or something. So it's like 5 a.m, songs on, and it's great. I actually really like that. Kind of keeps me awake because it's tough to drive that early in the morning for me. So then I do that, and then the rest of the time it's like anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes of that, and then the rest of my drive's like about 15, 20 minutes, and I use that to pray, go through Acts, and that has just been really sweet. And I'm crying at like 5:30 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to drive, I can't see. It's rough sometimes. But it's been really sweet. And I think the confession part specifically, I just hadn't really thought about much at all lately. And so having that is just being mindful and then reflective, and that's just been really good. So, yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to have like my back to it. That feels weird. Yeah, I'll be real honest. I had such a bad attitude when Bree and William were like, we're going to read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That came out in college, and I was like, I've been avoiding this book for 8 years of my life. Please no. And yeah, I was like, I just knew. I was like, this is going to push against everything in my life, and I'm going to hate it, and I know it'll be good for me, but it's going to just be painful. And then we did Practicing the Way in CTF, and I was like, cool, like more of it. And then we're doing it here. So, I don't know. I just don't want to come up and be like, and it was awesome. And it has been. I want to be honest. Like I had a bad attitude. I was like, okay, great. I just feel like William had mentioned this a few weeks ago in our small group, and it kind of clicked for me of this idea of like, okay, I'm an adult Christian, and in following God, it should look like that I should be able to handle doing all these things, and I should have, this many one-on-ones, and doing this here, doing my job, meeting with people, like more is better, right? Because that's like, I'm working for the Lord. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally find myself falling into that belief category there. And I feel like, yeah, those books really obviously pushed against that. And yeah, there were just pieces of my life. God was like, so come on, like, let's dig a little bit more in here. And I was, stubborn and didn't want to. And my new favorite joke is I kind of like a part-time job outside of my 9-to-5 job, and God had been telling me to like ease up on those hours there, and I wasn't giving up my Sunday shift, and now our church meets during my time slot, so I had to give it up. So that's my fault. It's people who aren't happy with our time period. I'm like, blame it on me. God told me to do that, and I didn't. So then he forced our church time. But yeah, I mean, just so many different pieces of my life. Like, it's been, again, really good for me. I don't want to get up here and feel like it hasn't. But it has been like painful to like kind of sift through those. And I live alone now, and realizing like how much I've picked up, some bad habits. Cause I'm like, oh, normally I would be like talking and communing with people, but I'm here. And so here's my phone, or here's, music, and trying to push against that. And, it's been so good. It's been hard. But yeah, I feel like the last, few weeks, like, I feel like I'm getting to, see a lot more of the fruit of that slowing. And, particularly in the last few days, I feel like because I wasn't, in a rush doing my back-to-back activity after activity things to like be good, do my jobs, for the Lord, I feel like I've just gotten to be like present in what God is doing around me and with people. And did you see the double rainbow the other day? Like, come on, that was so cool. Like, what if we were just scrolling on our phones and missing the sweetness of God there? But yeah, I don't know, just, it's been so helpful. But if you are somebody who also is like, I don't want to put some of these things into practice, just an encouragement to you, like, it's probably good that it's painful, because that means like God is working in you. Like, keep stepping into that. And I know there's still like so many things on this like slowness and stillness I have to like step into there. But yeah, that it's just really good. And we really grow when we're comfortable. That good old tagline, you got to keep reminding yourself there.
Hi, everyone. So I applied something in solitude this week at a singing recital that I had. And what led up to that is that I've been had the good fortune of Bible studying with Alex for about 1.5 years. And he recommended a book that I think JC read called Out of Solitude by Henry Nouwen. And I read the book, and it impacted me a lot. It said, talked about being in solitude with God and accepting the invitation that we've talked about a lot. And it talked about the opposite of the invitation, which is, it phrased it as, once I acquire this in myself, then I can be good enough for God. Or once I acquire this, then I'll feel happy in life. Or once I acquire this, then life will be great. Or I'll have a great relationship, or great this or that. And I just researched accepting an invitation more, because that's something I'm not that great at. And something that really stuck with me about accepting the invitation, it said that in the Lord's Prayer, that it says, give us this day our daily bread. It does not say, please give us bread forever, for eternity, for permanence, and forever and ever, all the time. So it just says, give us this day our daily bread. So I applied that this week at a singing recital a few days ago, because I had a 1-day notice that I had to sing solo, and this was my first time singing solo. I'd never done it, and it was like 40 people, and I was sitting there getting ready, and I had this, if only I had my technique down, if only I had this down or this down, and getting kind of nervous because there was 10 other singers that are a lot better than me, and opera level people. But then I was sitting there, and I thought of what I read in Out of Solitude, and about not having this mentality of once I do this, then I can be comfortable in life. So I just went into solitude with Christ, and I asked to just give us this day our daily bread. And in that moment, it's just please give me just, I guess, the courage and the skill and just this one moment today to sing well and get up there and give my heart to it. And I don't know, just every nerve just kind of faded away, and I didn't really think about if I would look embarrassing or not as good as anybody else, or maybe the least good in there. And I just went up there and just gave it all my heart, and that was thanks to God. So it felt great to accept the invitation in that moment, and that was a big step for me going into solitude with God and accepting an invite.
All right. Is anybody dying to share? We can maybe do one more. Okay.
So this series has helped me correct my direction or course that I've been taking. Most of you know that I've lost my husband and our one and only grandson within 10 months. And the reason this was so good for me is because the course correction, I used to fly twin-engine airplanes. And the number one rule they tell you is that you need to constantly course correct, because the moment that you go even 1 degree in the wrong direction, or what you think is the right direction because you think you're going straight, but because of winds and other things that happen, you start drifting. And you can end up hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. And so what hit me the most is about God being my closest friend. And I wonder how many of us challenge that and wonder about that, because do we treat God like our closest friend? Or do we just have physical closest friends here on earth? And when my husband passed away, who was my physical closest friend, I was challenged by the fact that I don't have a physical closest friend anymore. And I have lots of really great close friends, but who can carry the weight of what I'm having to deal with on a daily basis? Nobody can. And so my question became to myself, and I challenge everybody as well, is like, what do I expect of my closest friend? Listens, validates, corrects. But the closest friend does not fix and does not change the situation, and neither does God.
All right. Thank you guys for sharing. That was really cool and encouraging. Just hold on to these things. Let's not let this be a series that that was really cool and helpful and I really needed that. And then it all flies out the window and we go back to living our suburban lifestyle. I want to be a Christian. I want to be like Christ. I don't want to be a suburban mom. I do want to be a suburban mom, but I want to be a Christian, and I want to live life like Christ. And that's going to look different for each of us, but be praying and seeking, always coursing correct our life of where is God leading me, and what does it look like for me to do this in America? What does it look like? Because I think Satan's really good, and he really wants to get us off course, but in a really sneaky way. And we're living the American dream rather than living like Christ. So, let's be praying about that, and let's keep tweaking and keep thinking of things that we can implement. I'm going to pray, and then we'll finish out. God, thank you. Thank you for these gifts. Thank you for these practices. Help us to always see them as that, not as burdens, but as a gift to know you, to become more like you, to hear from you, and to commune with you. Pray that you'll guide each of us just in what that looks like for us and what we need to pursue now. And pray that you'll protect us from the evil one and help us to follow your way. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.